Hello, today's Tuesday, and you're listening to this week's Community Questions with F, your leader, alongside Indy, but he's not appearing in the podcast today. So I'm going to go through some of the questions that you've asked me this week and give either my opinion or what I think is correct, and hopefully I'll be able to back it up with some research after, and I'm not talking out of my arse. So, question 1 from Judgment Fist. What do you think of evolved aliens like Ultimate Echo, Omni-Enhanced Heat Blast, etc.? Now, I kind of liked the idea back in the day when I was about, must have been about 14 when Ben 10 Ultimate Alien came out. Maybe 15, who knows at this point. So, I think I was on board, but then I looked at them, and most of them look terrible. Some of them are lazy. For example, Ultimate Wildmutt, who's just red and can talk, which takes away the only interesting thing about Wildmutt. But the Omni-Enhanced, I haven't watched the reboot. Well, I've watched like 2 episodes. It was not amazing, but it was not terrible. It was better than some episodes of Ultimate Alien. I like young Ben. Old Ben tends to be boring or a massive arsehole to people. So the Omni-Enhanced, I don't like how they look. But I have not watched any episodes with them doing anything. I think most of them are a bit over the top. They look very much like toys, which is a problem that people had with the Ultimate ones, which I didn't see as much. But these ones very much look like toys, and not even different toys. It's like, let's strap a sword onto Diamond Head. Plus, I do not like how they all look like Shock Rock, because it means, why would I use Shock Rock when all of my aliens have just got bits of Shock Rock strapped onto them now? My second question comes from my longtime reader, Ultimate Negative Wrath. He asks why some aliens, despite being fan favourites, were massively underused, like Blitzwolfer, Splitter, and Snarrow, etc. Well, I feel like aliens that got added later in the series were either there just for toys or for a marketing event. Then the Halloween trio was a big hype lead-up in the 3rd series? Yeah, it has to be the 3rd series. That's what I'm reviewing right now. As painful as it is. But that's a thing for another day. So Snarrow, Blitzwolfer, and I don't remember his name, Frankenstrike, otherwise known as Ben Mummy, Ben Victor, and Ben Wolf. I feel like they just didn't have enough use. Wildvine can do everything that Snarrow can do, plus plants. Frankenstrike is intelligence for grey matter. The electricity, Ben never really needed that much. And even then, I think Ben 10,000 would prefer Buzzshock because of his intangibility. Ben Wolf, he's strong. The Sonic thing is useful, but it's not that useful. You don't need it for anything. It's good for fighting, but Ben has 10 other aliens already that are useful for fighting. And if he really needs to win a big fight, he can just use Way Big. So I feel like it was just bad timing. If he'd got them earlier in the series, I imagine he'd use them more. But seeing as you only have the 4th series after he's got all these aliens, it was just bad timing on their half. And then obviously Alien Force locked all the old aliens. And then only some of the biggest fan favourites came back towards the end, like Cannonball, Heat Blast, etc. So I think it's just bad timing on their part. And then by the time you get to Omniverse, it's got about 60 to choose from. So it's a question of how many can we fit in, how many new ones can we introduce. And that's the problem towards the end of the last series, where they weren't allowed to introduce any new aliens. But that's why Skurd came in so handy, because they didn't have to introduce anything new. So it's just a question of timing, I think. Also because I feel like they didn't have as much depth put into them. For example, the fact that they didn't even have proper names until Omniverse shows that the writers really didn't care for them that much. And Splitter was only in the future. I feel like they just wanted to keep the future and the past separate. Obviously, Ben has to unlock them at his own pace. Ben 10,000 refused to cheat and give them the whole thing. So it was just a little tease. And I imagine if we did get a next series, there'd be a Splitter in there. Same way we got the Arctic-Iguana in Omniverse. So, question 3 from Springlock. What do you think about Alien X and Ben recreating the universe with him? Well, I feel like it was a good excuse for plot errors. It also meant that any changes later on they could blame on the retcon. People don't like the retcons in Omniverse. I do like the retcons in Omniverse because it makes it more like the original vision that the original series had. And I'm really not a fan of lots of things in Ultimate Alien and Alien Force. So getting rid of them made me happy, and I feel like that's what they wanted, because obviously the core audience from the original series it sort of died off a little bit. They didn't like the cartoony art style, so they were trying to bring it back story-wise, and it brought me back, so I guess it worked. I guess that's all I can say, is that it was made for people like me. It appealed to people like me. I can imagine people not like me being very disappointed with it and wanting their original, their Alien Force and Ultimate Alien canon back. But it's dead because Ben accidentally let it get blown up and he built it back in a different way. And I feel like that's a good reason to have continuity errors if you're going to have continuity errors. Question 4 from KM. Why do you think that the original series, when Ben transformed, the Omnitrix symbol turned white, but every classic version of Ben afterwards, besides the reboot, had the symbol being green? Now, they did get into this during the Alien Force Ultimate Alien run, with the director saying that the Omnitrix in the original series was faulty, and that the white plate was just a sign of it not working properly. Other directors would go on to choose to forget the detail and then have young Ben with a green stamp, but that was the explanation originally. I feel like they decided that half their advertising is green, they should probably make green more of a focus, hence all the green eye stuff. But yeah, it's really just a missing detail. It was a broken Omnitrix in Series 1 apparently, even though it seems to work much better there than it did anywhere else, apart from maybe Alien Force, because he seemed to have master control of the whole series for some reason, but that's another thing for another time. But yeah, so the original justification is it was white when it was broken, and it was green when it was fixed. And originally, the clothes options, the black and white clothing that Ben has in the original series, and then obviously the black and green clothing he has in Omniverse, apparently there is a setting in the Omnitrix, according to the director, which allows him to turn clothes mode on and off. And if you have it on, it will fit what you're wearing as you transform into a similar bodysuit for the alien of question. And if you have it off, it will just be a naked neutral alien, like he has for Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. So Ben decided to be a nudist for a bit. Question 5 from Gravitomics. Do you feel that Cartoon Network made a bad choice in rebooting the franchise instead of continuing the original storyline before, ultimately leading up to a Ben 10,000 series? Short answer is yes. Long answer is maybe. Because I would prefer Ben 10,000, obviously we all would, but they were never going to do it. You don't get future stories outside of Batman Beyond and the Spider-Man, whatever that one was called, it was terrible. It was really bad. Anyway, future stories tend not to be made because if you have a grown-up character, people feel alienated. Ash Ketchum will never finish his Pokemon journey because they don't want to make a new character. They don't want to have to reintroduce it. The fact they aged Ben at all is surprising, and it's pretty bold to get him out of the 10-year-old bracket because they know they love their 10-year-old audience. Short answer is people weren't watching anymore. I didn't watch much of Alien Force and Ultimate Alien when I was a kid because I didn't like the changes. I didn't like how dark they tried to make it because it felt more childish than the original. They made Omniverse a comedy, which brought lots of people back like me, but lots of people turned off. They really didn't know where to go. And I feel like a reboot was their safest option for keeping the franchise alive, keeping their toy lines alive, because people like the original Aliens. People didn't like the 60 Aliens. People didn't like the fact that Ben 10 didn't have 10 aliens. They thought it was weird. So bringing it back to zero means that it's not dead anymore. I feel like the new series would have done... A new series after Omniverse, it would have been all in space from the setup of Omniverse's ending, and I feel like people would have hated it, and then they'd have just cancelled Ben 10, or they'd have rebooted it then. So I feel like the reboot is the only option they had, and despite me not liking it, it's, it could have been worse. It could have been another weird change, and who knows? We might see Ben come back in the future. All the Omniverse, multiverse stuff and the end of Omniverse could mean that original series Ben 10 might pop up in the reboot. Who knows? It would be nice. But there you go. That's all I can say on that, really, because I don't like the reboot, but it's better than some reboots. You've seen the Powerpuff Girl reboot. It's terrible. It's weird. It's creepy. At least it actually has a plot now and then. And the Vilgax episode wasn't the worst thing. It could have been an original series episode. It wouldn't have been the best original series episode, but it could have been. And I'm amazed it took them this long to put a Vilgax alien in the Omnitrix. It's not like we've been waiting for that since Series 1. And that's everything from this week's community questions. If you want to ask anything, just feel free to message me or to throw it onto either the old community question one. I will be throwing up a new community questions post next week for you to upload your stuff to. I hope this has explained everything perfectly well. It's everything that I think I know. I will try and provide as much evidence as I can. A lot of the knowledge that I've got comes from reading far too much of the Ben 10 wiki about 5 years ago. So if I've misremembered anything, I will try and provide sources. If I can't find it, take my word. Unless you find something saying that I'm wrong, you'll just have to believe me for now. And I hope that you're enjoying the Amino. So until next week, have a good day, have a good evening, have a good week. And read my reviews, because, God, they're painful to write sometimes. Bye, guys.